Judas and the Black Messiah pits Daniel Kaluyya as civil rights activist Fred Hampton against Lakeith Stanfield as FBI asset William ONeil, in a political thriller directed by new-ish director Shaka King. But is it any good? Let's find out.
18 months for the stolen car. 5 years for impersonating a federal officer. Or you can go home.
The Black Panthers are forming a rainbow coalition of oppressed brothers and sisters of every color.
Their aim is to sow hatred and inspire terror.
I will learn all that I can.
These ain't no terrorists.
You can murder a liberator, but you can't murder liberation. You can murder a revolutionary, but you can't murder revolution. And you can murder a freedom fighter, but you can't murder freedom.
The Black Messiah of the title is Fred Hampton, deputy chairman of the Illinois Black Panther Party and a rising star in their ranks. Freaked out by his meteoric rise in popularity, J. Edgar Hoover, the head of the FBI, wants to take him down. Enter Judas, aka William ONeil. A petty criminal, he's picked up after a crime by FBI handler Bill Mitchell and set to task infiltrating and undermining the Panthers. Set over a tumultuous but short time period in the late 60s, the film quickly establishes its history with an opening montage of archive footage explaining the Panthers and their place in the civil rights movement. This is an excellent primer, by the way, for a time period that's often swept under the rug. And I think one of the film's primary aims is to expose that time period, expose what happened in it, and it does an excellent job in doing that. Most importantly, in this montage we meet Fred Hampton, played with amazing ability by Daniel Kaluyya. Hampton is a politician, and one noted for his charisma and speaking ability at that, so Kaluyya spends much of his screen time delivering speeches, and I think he more than rises to that challenge. Kaluyya, I think, is quickly developing into one of the most interesting actors around. He's supremely charismatic, and he's able to balance this sort of righteous anger with a light touch of humour, or more even maybe just a wink and a nod towards those small truths of the world, a sly look here and there, along with these showman-like calls and responses. So the film's top set pieces really are his speeches, and it's also there that King's directing is at its best. Throughout the film, there's also a focus on the actual day-to-day activities of the Panthers, which makes it kind of singular to me. I don't think I've seen much like this. I think even Malcolm X, which is kind of my gold standard for films about the Black civil rights movement in America, really devotes that much time to the kind of actual activities involved in activism every day. It's much more about Malcolm as this kind of great figure. And so, by the way, my question to you is, if you do know any more movies that kind of deal with that day-to-day activity of civil rights and activism, political activism, then do let me know. And I'm particularly interested in fiction in this case. I've seen a few documentaries about political stuff, but always interested to find out more fiction that's political in nature. The other thing about this is that it really serves to underscore that the majority of the Panthers' activities were basically feeding kids and educating their members. Now, yes, obviously there was a lot of militarism tied up in the party, but more often than not, at least in the depiction that the film gives, it's the result of them being pushed into a corner by the constant escalating and undermining that the FBI is engaging in. And that's a story that we don't really hear that much about, for obvious reasons. I don't think many Americans want to confront the fact that the FBI ran an active disinformation campaign against its own citizens during that period. So anyway, that's the Black Messiah, Fred Hampton. What about Judas? Well, he's played by another fascinating, relatively new talent, Lakeith Stanfield. Despite his great filmography, I think he really jumped to my notice in Sorry to Bother You, and he also had some great supporting roles in both Knives Out and Uncut Gems last year. Now, don't get me wrong, I think Daniel Kaluyya is great, like I said, but I'm always excited to sit down to watch a Lakeith Stanfield performance. There's something kind of slippery and unexpected about him as an actor. He has this laconic approach that makes him totally fascinating on screen. And I think that holds true here too, because while I think Kaluyya puts in an excellent traditional biopic performance, Stanfield takes the much less well-known ONeil and pulls out all the stops to give him plenty of nasty character traits. Which is good news, because the film itself doesn't seem to give him much to work with. Despite the implicit two-hander you might be expecting from Kaluyya and Stanfield's equal billing, and from, well, Judas coming before Black Messiah in the title, I really felt that director Shaka King and screenwriters Luke Besson and Kenny and Keith Lucas were much more interested in making this a Fred Hampton biopic. Now, I understand the impetus behind that. Like I said, his story is vitally important and it's not very well known or widely discussed nowadays. However, ONeil is a really important character in the story that this film covers, and he gets lots of screen time, but barely any backstory or motivation. Let's talk about his introduction, for instance. It's fantastic and it's dynamic. He poses as an FBI officer, raids a bar to shake down the black patrons inside, and then confiscates the nice car that's waiting outside, that's owned by one of the guys in the bar. It's a really clever set piece that sets him up as a man who can pass with many identities, and obviously has quite loose morals. That makes him a great asset to the FBI's infiltration program, but also a kind of foil to Kaluyya's honest ideals. And then, after that, we get almost nothing about him. Which is important because, unlike almost every other black character in the film, ONeil is actively working to bring down the Black Panthers. He's the villain of the movie, and we never really get a clear idea as to why. I don't feel like I know much about ONeil except what Stanfield intimates via his obviously typically excellent performance. He's the first name in the title, he's the first main character we meet in the flesh, but the movie doesn't seem to be about him. Oh, okay, I mean he's in it and it's about what he did, but Hampton is the focus. Which, like I said, makes sense, he's a more important figure, but I need a bit of motivation in the man I know will betray him. With the film switching between political speeches and thriller elements, it feels sometimes a bit like a more compact Black Klansman. Unfortunately, I feel that what it gains in being more of a straightforward thriller also makes it a less interesting take on the events that it depicts. Still, it's a compelling, well-acted and well-realised recounting of one of the darkest episodes in American political history, and one that's of vital importance. But that's just my take, and I'd love to hear yours. So let me know in the comments below what you thought of Judas and the Black Messiah. Are you hankering, like me, for more meaty roles for Lakeith Stanfield to sink his teeth into? Are you enjoying seeing more Hollywood movies looking at under-discussed episodes from Black American political history? Let's have a chat about it. That's it from me, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.